Washed ashore on a remote island with nothing but a knife and my wits to protect me, I was immediately grabbed by Windbound's opening moments. In this seafaring adventure, you must harvest materials and craft tools to keep main character Kara alive as she navigates through a series of procedurally generated archipelagos in her search for the other surviving members of her tribe. Unfortunately, the combination of exhausting survival mechanics and a paper-thin plot meant that neither the voyage nor the destination proved to be worth the time and effort. Windbound takes an intriguing premise and completely blows it. A gorgeous painterly aesthetic gives the impression that Windbound could be set somewhere off the coast of Hyrule, but that's largely where comparisons with The Legend of Zelda end. While it does feature a lead character with a habit of smashing pots, Windbound otherwise lacks the dungeons and environmental puzzles typically found in one of Link's legendary adventures. Instead, Windbound leans hard into a survival-based grind that makes Breath of the Wild's breakable weapons seem like little more than a minor inconvenience. Before you begin the adventure, you're instructed that the survivalist difficulty setting is the full Windbound experience, and so that's exactly what I chose to play it on. Survivalist strips you of most of your inventory and returns you to the beginning each time Kara perishes. And I found those high roguelike stakes made me particularly careful about which beasts to engage with and which craftable objects to prioritize as I made my way from one island to the next. There's a fairly extensive crafting system at Kara's disposal, but aside from a basic boat and perhaps a sharpened stick to defend yourself with, none of it feels particularly essential. You can play all the way through Windbound's story existing on a diet of mushrooms, avoiding all enemies, and not making a single modification to your canoe. There's all this crafting to do in Windbound, but I couldn't find a compelling reason to bother with any of it. Still, I was otherwise content to play on the survivalist setting, that is, until midway through the 4th chapter when, literally out of the blue, this happened. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on the shore at the beginning of the 1st chapter, some 6 or 7 hours of progress washed away like a sandcastle in a rising tide. This abrupt and seemingly unavoidable demise left a salty taste in my mouth that had nothing to do with swallowing too much seawater, and needless to say that after that I switched the difficulty to Storyteller and kept it there for the remainder of my Windbound playthrough. Let's see that one more time. Come off it, video games. Storyteller mode certainly makes progress easier since enemies are weaker, and even if you die you can restart with your full inventory intact at the beginning of your current chapter rather than all the way back at the start. But Windbound's plot is so scarce and its objectives so repetitive that once you've stripped away the more challenging survival mechanics and roguelike structure, you really aren't left with a particularly engrossing adventure. Each of the 5 chapters of Windbound feature 3 randomly placed but structurally indistinct tower beacons that must be found and activated before you can pass through an exit portal. The story, or what evidence there is of one, is mostly told via a static mural that is gradually revealed upon the completion of each chapter. And that's it. At least in story terms, there's no reason to really explore Windbound's waters since there appears to be no characters to meet or unique structures to uncover. There's just not enough mystery to lure me into clearing the fog off each of its maps, since invariably the most exciting discoveries to make are merely shrines to increase the limits of your health and stamina bars. Windbound hints at an ocean of possibilities at its outset, but ultimately delivers an adventure with all the depth and excitement of a wading pool. Despite its genuinely breathtaking scenery and interesting castaway premise, Windbound is ultimately a letdown. Neither compelling as a survival simulation nor captivating as a story-based experience, Windbound is fundamentally all at sea and should be given a wide berth. For more Windbound, check out the first 17 minutes of gameplay, and for everything else, stick with IGN.